Chapter 449 Battle Against the Vampire in Rage. Lu Ru raised her head and saw Mo Fan approaching her through the vanishing light from the flame. She realized something, and quickly covered her face with her hand. She was afraid that Mo Fan would see her fangs. She had no clue how to hide these loathsome things. She felt like a monster when they were exposed outside of her mouth, and she had also used them to drink Mo Fan's blood. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! You're asking for your death. The vampire's furious roar was heard coming from outside the window. Despite falling from the height, he was not smashed into minced meat. Instead, he had turned into a bat and flown back up to the floor. The bat's wings were terrifying, like giant leather stained with oil wrapped around the wings' bones, like a great long wall when they were fully extended. Nidong angrily flew back to the floor and locked his vicious, glowing eyes on Mo Fan. This goddamned magician was the reason everything went wrong, including him being kicked out from the family and losing his favorite prey. Those who dared mess with vampires all ended up with their corpses and souls missing. Since Nidong was no longer bound to the rules, he would not care if the person was a magician or not. Claw of Destruction. A sticky lump of blood appeared around Nidong, which rapidly taking the shape of a giant claw. As Nidong swiped his hand forward, the claw made of blood tore at Mo Fan. The claw swept past the floor, big enough to hold Mo Fan's entire figure in it. Mo Fan did not dare to lower his guard. His body quickly dissolved into the shadows spread by the scattering light. The claw clenched tightly, trying to pinch Mo Fan into pieces. Unfortunately, it had only caught Mo Fan's afterimage, as the real Mo Fan had turned into a lump of shadow moving toward another position across the wall. Just a little trick, mocked Nidong. He was too familiar with the shadow element, thus, a simple relocation through the shadow was not enough to escape from his darkness-contaminated eyes. As Nidong swiped his hands, screeches were heard coming from the darkness on the floor. Cold flickers took place as the sharp wings flapped rapidly, their eyes emitting red glows. It was the Nightblade bats. Nidong was able to control hundreds of these Nightblade bats at a time. Their attack could easily shred a living human into pieces. The Nightblade bats came from all directions and quickly gathered towards Mo Fan. Mo Fan was aware that the space in the building was limited, which hindered him from using his full strength. He quickly grabbed the severely injured Lu Ru and dashed toward the gap between the steel glass. The steel glass broke from the collision, and the pieces dropped from the 40th floor together with Mo Fan. "Do you think you can run away from me?" Nidong's bellow came from behind them. The roar was followed by the screeches of the Nightblade bats. The bats rushed out of the building like a cloud of black gas, chasing after the falling Mo Fan relentlessly. Their descent was not quick enough. Many parts on Mo Fan's body were covered in cuts from the Nightblade bat's wings. Lu Ru immediately used her body to protect Mo Fan from the bat's attack. Even though she was covered in wounds, the Nightblade bats could only leave shallow cuts on her body without focusing on a certain part. Her body composition was extraordinary compared to normal humans, even stronger than magicians. The flock of black creatures followed after Mo Fan, who cast the fleeing shadow as he almost landed on the ground. His figure quickly dissolved among the shadows of the buildings, and moved toward the illuminated street. The street was deserted. The street was full of finance companies, and most of their operating hours were only from 9 to 5. It was rare to see any pedestrian here once the clock struck 7. The nearest residential area was around half a kilometer away. The number of cars passing by on the street was almost zero, and the traffic lights on the intersections were mere decorations. Mo Fan sprinted to the intersection using fleeing shadow, and was unable to travel any further when the shadows diminished at the center there. Meanwhile, the Nightblade bats were nocturnal creatures. They could easily trace Mo Fan's location and stayed on his heels. Their inky black bodies were fully exposed under the gloomy streetlights, all packed densely together. "Still chasing after me? I'll kill you all." Mo Fan stopped running. A fiery star pattern was drawn rapidly under his feet, while the flames accumulated on his right fist rapidly. As the star pattern was completed, a blazing force gathered on Mo Fan's wrist. Ground break. As the fist struck the ground, the cement at the center of the intersection began to crack open. Boiling lava jetted out into the air, dyeing the place red. A fiery, wild, and tempestuous ground break blossomed, centered on Mo Fan. Mo Fan had thrown the punch right at the ground under him, and the fire bursting out from it covered him whole, as if his entire person was set aflame. The Nightblade bats were charging at Mo Fan in a stream, planning to tear him to pieces. However, they were quickly burned into ashes by the flames, despite their numbers. A huge chunk of them was burned to death and wiped out instantly. The fire was still drifting wildly. Mo Fan's body was blazing red from the fire, looking like a volcano that would explode in any second. The remaining Nightblade bats scattered like absent-minded flies, totally losing any courage to provoke Mo Fan. Mo Fan spat and raised his eyes, quickly discovering a pair of giant leather wings looming over him. Between the black wings was a savage face. The sharp fangs poking out from his upper jaw had almost reached the bottom of his jaw. Nidong opened his mouth and bit at Mo Fan's neck. He was not trying to drink Mo Fan's blood, he wanted to tear his throat out. Light protection. Sacred shield. As Mo Fan was still thinking about how he was going to dodge the attack, Zhao Manyan's chant was heard from not far away, where he had just arrived in his car. The sacred light shield quickly surrounded Mo Fan, forming a barrier which blocked the darkness and the evil creature. The fangs crashed onto the sacred shield. White smoke quickly rose from Nidong's fangs, and he immediately withdrew in fear. After all, the light element was a vampire's weakness, clearly shown by Nidong's panicked expression. Chapter 450 Perfect Defense. I told you to wait for me. See, you almost got yourself killed by coming here alone. Zhao Manyan had managed to make it in time. Mo Fan now had the protection of a sacred shield. Defended by the powerful light element spell, he was no longer afraid of the vampire's attack. He quickly drew a lightning element star pattern. Since he could not blast the asshole to death with his fiery fist, it would not hurt to strike the vampire to death with lightning. After all, the lightning element was somewhat related to the light element. Qinjun. Thunderbolt. Yaksha. Mo Fan completed the star pattern and pointed his finger at Nidong's head. A terrifying lightning bolt struck down between the buildings. A brilliant lightning dragon was reflected on the steel glass. The thunderbolt split into several forks halfway, which looked like a claw. Nidong had a fairly quick reaction, but the lightning had a wide area of effect. As it landed on the vampire, his body began to tremble, tiny sparks flickering on it. Nidong felt like his bones had loosened after he was hit by the lightning. If it weren't for the outstanding strength of a vampire, the force of the lightning would have been powerful enough to disintegrate him. Mo Fan, keep using lightning, said Zhao Manyan, not far away. In the meantime, a blue star pattern appeared under Zhao Manyan's feet. The water in the air rapidly gathered in his direction while he was drawing the star pattern. Rolling wave. Raging tide. Blue water descended from the sky like a river. The fierce current resulted in a tide that almost occupied the entire street. The rolling wave swept forward and rapidly drowned Nidong, who was still recovering from the damage inflicted by the lightning. The violent tide dragged him more than 100 meters away. The impact of the wave had a weakening effect. Nidong was soaked in the water for a long time as his body was dragged about by the current. It took him some time to overcome the force of the water element spell, but to his surprise, another purple-black thunderbolt landed on his head. He was drenched in the water, which helped to conduct the electricity. The vampire had trouble rising to his feet for a prolonged period. His eyes were bloodshot, glaring at Mo Fan and Zhao Manyan. How dare you two weak magicians oppose me? Nidong finally gathered himself and snapped at the two magicians furiously. Nidong spread his arms and slowly lifted his hands. His claws extended to half a meter long, before they swiped forward in the shape of a cross with great power. A shockwave with a cross shape swept forward, slashing the streetlight poles on both sides of the road in half. The poles fell, and produced sparkles as the bulbs hit the ground. Look after yourself. How could his claws grow so long? Swore Zhao Manyan. Mo Fan could not find any shadows nearby. In addition to that, the claws were approaching him swiftly, so he would not be able to dodge it with fleeing shadow in time. Mo Fan activated the departing nether shield without hesitation. A loud screech was heard as the claws collided with the departing nether shield. Hiding behind the shield, Mo Fan was still knocked more than 10 meters back. As the force completely dissipated, Mo Fan rose his head and saw a deep claw mark covering 10 meters of the street in front of him. On the other hand, Zhao Manyan had used the light protection, sacred shield to defend himself. However, as he was about to cast the next spell, Nidong appeared behind him from nowhere in an eerie manner. Only then did Zhao Manyan realize his position was covered in shadows. The vampire had used the shadow element to teleport himself for the surprise attack. His half-meter-long claws thrust at Zhao Manyan's chest mercilessly, as if they were going to tear Zhao Manyan's organs out instantly. Water barrier. Zhao Manyan was actually a magician without any offensive abilities, so all his defensive spells always helped him to survive longer in danger. The water barrier easily nullified the vampire's brute force. The stab from the claws was rendered ineffective. Zhao Manyan made use of the opportunity and one-handedly cast the light element basic spell. Brilliant light. Blind. The burning white glow on his palm exploded in front of the vampire. At such a close distance, most demon beasts would experience great pain from their eyes because of the spell, not to mention a vampire who was naturally afraid of light. Nidong felt like the glow was burning his eyes. Oh! Nidong covered his eyes with his hands and cried out in pain. His fangs extended once again, as he was trying to bite Zhao Manyan in a berserk manner. He could not see Zhao Manyan, yet he could sense his location. His water barrier was gone. The bite would easily take half of Zhao Manyan's life. Zhao Manyan did not panic when he saw the vampire was desperately trying to bite him. A golden shield with a pattern of guardian wings appeared in front of Zhao Manyan. The shield was made of some unknown material, its sturdiness comparable to steel. The vampire's fangs only left shallow teeth marks on it, inflicting great pain in return. I'm going to kill you. Nidong was infuriated after being tricked several times in a row. He used his brute force to lift Zhao Manyan and the shield up, as if he were going to tear Zhao Manyan into pieces. To his surprise, Zhao Manyan was fully covered in defensive equipment. As a safety measure, Zhao Manyan had activated his shining golden armor after using the golden shield. The magic armor was obviously of superior quality, majestic in appearance, making him look like a golden warrior. Nidong had no chance of tearing Zhao Manyan apart when the guy was in the armor, regardless of how strong he was. By the time he remembered that he could slash through the golden armor with the power of his blood, Zhao Manyan had already completed a light element intermediate spell. The light protection, sacred shield rapidly wrapped around Zhao Manyan's figure. The scythe which the vampire had summoned with his blood immediately dissolved into a pool of blood when it made contact with the sacred shield. 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of defense, and by the time the 4th layer of defense crumbled, he had finished casting the defensive spell. Nidong felt like he was about to go crazy. He had encountered many intermediate magicians, yet he had never seen anyone with as many defensive abilities as Zhao Manyan. If Zhao Manyan were any other offensive-focused magician, he would have died many times, yet the vampire still had not touched a single strand of his hair. It was like the encounter between a fierce tiger and a sturdy turtle. The tiger had no clue what to do next. Nidong was extremely furious yet scared of the burn from the sacred shield. He immediately tossed Zhao Manyan into the distance. A magician like him should be thrown as far away as possible. Chapter 451 Breaking the Fangs. Mo Fan was stunned for quite a long time as he watched the fight. Nidong was the vampire, yet why did it feel like he had encountered a ghost when he was battling against Zhao Manyan? However, Mo Fan did not just stand there while Zhao Manyan was occupied with the fight against the vampire. He had completed his fiery star pattern, and his right fist was fully covered in flames. Mo Fan's eyes felt like they were burning. He glared at the vampire and threw his fist at the ground angrily. Rose Flame. Fiery Fist. 9 halls. The burning energy rapidly surged into the ground. As soon as Nidong hurled Zhao Manyan away, the burning pillars with scorching lava burst out from the ground like a giant fire cage. Nidong was about to back away when a fire pillar sprang out from the ground. He dodged to the left, yet he was driven back by another fire pillar. He had nowhere to run. The flames between the pillars washed across him, and he cried out in pain as the fire burned him. The power of the fiery fist, 9 halls, was enough to inflict serious damage to the vampire, who was roaming through the flames, blinded. Nidong ran aimlessly, trying to escape from the fire. He swiped his claws wildly, tearing through the walls of the surrounding buildings. His aimless attacks posed no threat to Mo Fan and Zhao Manyan. The flames had not dispersed yet, but Zhao Manyan had already finished casting his intermediate spell. Light Protection, Rampart. Zhao Manyan quickly summoned a wall-like light barrier in the direction Nidong was running. The vampire slammed into the wall, and skin that was able to withstand the fire was immediately scorched by the light barrier. Zhao Manyan cast the same light element intermediate spell again when he saw how effective it was. The second wall made of light appeared in front of Nidong, whose skin was further scorched, leaving him in overwhelming pain. Nidong was already injured to begin with. His neck was torn open by Lu Ru, and still bleeding. Otherwise, he would not be so easily suppressed by the two weak magicians. For a vampire, losing his blood was the same as losing his power. The amount of blood lost correlated with how weak he was. Searing marks from the lightning, burned skin from the fire, scorched wounds from the light, blinded eyes, and vaguely hurting fangs. Nidong finally realized that he was currently in a pinch. Luckily, a vampire's hearing was better than normal humans. He was able to hear the sound of cars from the bridge not far away, which helped him to regain his sense of direction. He turned around and quickly grew a pair of leathery wings, his body hidden under the jagged bones of the wings. He quickly flew out from the two light barriers, heading in the bridge's direction. Mo Fan tried to use lightning strike to paralyze Nidong, but he was very nimble in his winged form. He weaved his way through the lightning tendrils, dodging them agilely. The lightning strike did not hit him many times, so it was not enough to fully paralyze a creature like the vampire. He was about to draw the shadow element star pattern under his feet, but gave up when he suddenly remembered that the giant shadow spike was useless against the vampire. "He's running away. Quick, find a way to stop him," blurted out Zhao Manyan. None of Zhao Manyan's spells had the capability of confining and impairing the movement of an enemy. He could only stare at Mo Fan with a blank face. If he were able to cast 5 light protection ramparts in an instant, he could forcibly align the light barriers and use them as a cage. "Don't worry, he won't be able to escape." Mo Fan's legs glowed crimson, which slowly materialized and wrapped around his legs like a piece of armor. Mo Fan activated the blood tabi and chased after Nidong down the empty street. "The guy is flying and you're running. How are you going to catch him?" yelled Zhao Manyan. In the meantime, Zhao Manyan was not willing to give up either. He immediately rushed back to his luxurious car nearby. He inserted the key and ignited the engine. He was about to step on the pedal when he suddenly saw a golden ray appearing above the vampire in the direction the vampire was heading into. The ray of light split in a crisscross pattern, forming a golden net. The golden light net suddenly lunged at Nidong, who was forced to return to his original appearance when he touched the light that was enchanted with a sacred force. The light net wrapped around Nidong and fell to the ground. The burning effect from the light almost melted through his face. "Oh!" Nidong struggled wildly. His previous smug, proud look was nowhere to be seen, replaced with him shrieking out like a monster with a horrifying appearance. The other end of the net had gathered into a string, with the little Loli's fair, tender hand holding onto it. Ling Ling was wearing a satisfying smile, like a young but cunning little fox. As a hunter master, she had no fighting capacity, yet she was a genius at using tracking and hunting magical items. The vampire could easily dodge the light-binding net if it was used at the beginning of a fight, but the net was cast when the prey was trying to run away in a panic. The vampire had nowhere to escape. Nidong seemed to have captured Ling Ling's youthful scent, and recalled he had encountered the same scent at the North Country Club before. He sprang in Ling Ling's direction, hoping to scare her away with his sinister appearance. Ling Ling remained in her position. Her wrist had the net of the light element tied to it. The vampire had no chance of escaping from the light net. "Ling Ling, move aside," yelled Mo Fan furiously. He had totally unleashed the rage that had accumulated in his chest for a long time. Mo Fan activated the active power of the blood tabi, and as he approached the vampire, he leapt into the air and gave the creature a flying kick to his face. Using magic might destroy Ling Ling's light-binding net, so the physical power of the blood tabi had come just in time. Overwhelming force gathered on Mo Fan's right leg before it smashed into Nidong's face, producing a loud crash. Nidong spun in the air within the light-binding net, and flew over 30 meters away. A sedan which was parked illegally on the side of the road was smashed into pieces, showing how powerful the kick was. 2 white fangs broke off, dropping to the side of the smashed vehicle. Nidong's fangs were already loose when he bit Zhao Manyan's golden shield, and Mo Fan was aiming his kick right at his fangs. Once the fangs broke, a vampire was not far away from death, as a vampire had only one way to drink blood. Chapter 452 Avenged. After his fangs came off, the vampire had turned into a beaten dog. His initially well-groomed hair was hanging loosely. The handsome face he was proud of was covered in wounds and bruises. He touched his upper jaw, and when he discovered his fangs were missing, he probed around on the ground in panic. His eyes had not recovered from the blindness, and the fangs had dropped a great distance away. Even if he managed to find them, he would not be able to put them back. Nidong, who finally realized that his death was approaching, shuddered. He begged Mo Fan to spare his life. "I will do anything you ask me to do. I'll give you everything I have, too. Please, spare me, and give me back my fangs. Please, I'm begging you. I won't hurt anyone else, as long as you can let me go." Nidong's whole body was severely burned from the light-binding net. Mo Fan picked up the 2 fangs he desperately needed, his eyes not showing a hint of mercy. God knew how many innocent lives the vampire had killed in the city. There was no reason at all to spare his life. "I'll help you bring an end to this," Mo Fan said, turning around and glancing at Lu Ru. Lu Ru nodded. She stared at the whining bastard, wanting to witness the vampire's death with her own eyes. The rose flame erupted on Mo Fan's palm, and burned fiercely. The vampire was losing strength continuously. The light-binding net already tortured him greatly, and it went without saying that his body would not be able to endure Mo Fan's extremely hot rose flame. Mo Fan tossed the flame at the vampire. To ensure that the vampire would not come back to life again, Mo Fan cast a succession of burning bones, making sure to burn the vampire's body to ashes. The flames grew stronger, already lighting up the entire street blazing red. The battle had only lasted for a short period of time. A fire truck had made its way to the scene when it first started, but when the firefighters discovered the flames were the doing of a magician, they parked the truck a nice safe distance away. Both the police or the firefighters knew there were hunters in the city, and of the existence of demon beasts hiding among humans. As such, when a battle between hunters and demon beasts erupted, the police would evacuate the crowd nearby, and seal the area. Both Mo Fan and Ling Ling carried a hunter license with them, and the latter had also contacted the police prior to coming here, thus the incident did not result in a big panic. The flames burned vigorously on Nidong's body. Any ordinary human would have turned into a pile of ashes by now, but Nidong was still struggling and groaning in the fire. They could see that the vampire's body was undergoing a horrendous transformation in the fire. Jagged wings grew out from his back, while his body began to expand. His claws and limbs turned monstrous, with a long tail waving amid the flames. The blood tribes were split into 2 categories, one consisting of vampires with human lineage. These vampires looked the same as humans when they were not hunting, and would live among humans while obeying a set of rules to prevent themselves from being discovered by the hunters and churches. The other kind was known as vampiric monsters. Vampiric monsters were something that the vampires would turn into when they were overwhelmed by evil after indulging in the pleasure of killing, randomly drinking blood, and taking drugs. They would gradually lose their human lineage, and slowly became evil creatures of darkness. They would reveal their true appearances when their true nature was exposed, turning them into monsters. Nidong's transformation into a monster had proven that the guy had been roaming between the boundaries of a vampire and a vampiric monster. If they had not eliminated the guy in time, he would eventually have turned into a monster, leading to a disastrous event with great casualties, as vampiric monsters were mindless killing machines. Nidong, whose appearance had changed beyond recognition, struggled wildly in the flames. The firefighters who were driving the trucks immediately backed away after seeing this. They were ordinary humans after all. They would not dare to face such a terrifying demon beast. Still putting up a deathbed struggle? Mo Fan observed coldly. The flames burned even hotter under Mo Fan's control, even containing the rupture effect. The monster which Nidong had turned into was disintegrating in the rupturing flames. His arms fell off and fell to ashes. His head exploded and more sparks erupted. His body and limbs were scorched by the flames, which could not endure any further. Finally, Nidong collapsed to the ground. The fire had already spread to half of the street when the terrifying monster finally let out its final breath. The strong evil presence slowly dissipated among the blazing flames. Mo Fan, watch out for his soul, reminded Ling Ling. Don't worry, I've got the best tool possible to deal with a dead soul, responded Mo Fan grimly. Shortly after the vampire's death, a dark red soul like a little firefly slowly rose up from the flames. After losing its flesh, the vampire's soul was just a lone spirit without any power. However, Mo Fan's heart was swamped with joy when he discovered the soul. He was overjoyed. He had finally secured another complete warrior-level soul essence. Since capturing the soul essence of the mother-scale skin phantom, Mo Fan had not obtained any warrior-level soul essence. Even when he was massacring the demon beasts as the Deathbringer of Donjing Lake in the past, the chance of finding a warrior-level soul essence was too slim. The vampires were a somewhat special kind of warrior-level creature, thus the drop rate of a soul essence was significantly higher than that of ordinary demon beasts. The soul essence of the mother-scale skin phantom was sold at a crazy price, and the vampire's soul essence had even better quality. He was going to be rich again. However, Mo Fan found it strange that the soul essence was dark red in color. In the past, the souls that Mo Fan encountered had more of a dark green glow, both humans and demon beasts. The light was a unique trait of the souls, but it was his first time seeing a dark red glow like Nidong's soul, and wondered why was that the case. Wait! Ling Ling stopped Mo Fan all of a sudden. After the battle came to an end, Ling Ling seemed worn out and was close to falling asleep. After the quest was completed, she could finally go home to get the rest she deserved. She was not particularly interested in vampires. She was a hunter master after all, thus she had seen all kinds of weird monsters before. However, when Mo Fan was about to retrieve Nidong's unique soul, Ling Ling opened her eyes wide. Her limpid pupils flickered with irresistible anger. Her body slightly shuddered, as if she had found the thing she had always been looking for. Apart from the unexpected anger, her face was surprisingly filled with a compulsive excitement too. Her fierce, compelling excitement was something nobody expected to appear on her adorable face.